So good morning students. Today we will discuss the production of the phosphatic fertilizer. So that means the first is the question is what is the phosphatic fertilizer? Phosphatic fertilizer, that means the contents of the nutrient provided by these fertilizer are basis the nature of the phosphorus. Availability are more like a DAP हो गया, SSPs and nitrophosphate and different types of the in the nature only the nature of the phosphatic in India, phosphorus are represent the in these fertilizers. So the sources of the how to manufacture. This only the manufacturing, that means the how to produce the fertilizer in the factories or the different places. What the material or ingredient used for the fertilizer making. For the process, what is the process of the making the fertilizers? So what is the raw material used for the phosphate fertilizers? Such is the like a phosphate rock and sulfuric acid is the two major components. First is the phosphate rock. The rock phosphate is the high content of phosphorus, and second the sulfuric acid as the heating of the nature or the producing. So the two major raw material required for the maximum of the phosphatic fertilizer. First the if these material are using, what is the feature of or the character of the fertilizer? In these of the material using or adding in the fertilizer as the role. So the discussion should be must first for the in the this material. Why are adding only the use of these fertilizers? So the first is the sulfuric acid. The nearly the total sulfuric acid produced world over used for the manufacturing. That means the major as a fertilizer manufacturing process is the maximum used. The major are more used by the sulfuric acid in the world level. Second is the 60%. More than 60% of the world production of the sulfuric is based on the elemental sulfur and 25% of the pyrite and the rest of the sources. So the elemental sulfur is the but in the nature and the presence of the dry and the atmosphere. So the 9500 to 1100 degrees centigrade and to produce the sulfur dioxide. So the converted in sulfur dioxide through the catalytic oxidation. So the sulfur trioxide is essentially absorbed the diluted sulfuric acid, and the end of the product is the sulfuric acid. So the diluted is usually the 98% of the concentrated. Next is the basically two principle of the process of the use for the conversion of the sulfate to dioxides. So the first is the chamber process to the contact process. The contact process is the commonly followed by the water and metal oxides, and the platinum widely used as the catalyst. Second is the phosphate rocks. First material is sulfuric acid. Second material used as the manufacturing of the phosphorus. So first is the phosphate rock. These are the material or the content of the rich content of the phosphorus. That's basically main reason using for this material because the high content of phosphorus. So the phosphate rock means the rock containing a large rock is a proportion of phosphate minerals that being used for the such process of the manufacturing fertilizers, the direct application of the soil. Such another material for also as a use like apatites used as a phosphate containing mineral, but these are the cheapest and that means the availability of high in the earth, so easily available. So the direct application of soil. So the production of the industrial phosphorus and the compounds. So usually the mining and beneficiation. Beneficiation is the process like that, taking the organisms or the collecting the phosphorus mineral from the earth surface of the different layers, or the like these are the characters are like a deep and deepest. So the other give the terms. So the beneficiation is through the phosphate rock is the use for the without beneficiation. So 150 minerals are containing more than 1% of the phosphorus. 150 those with the 150 mineral more than 1% of the phosphate. But mineral has belonging to the two groups, namely apatites, the cheapest source, and the aluminum phosphate. The alone or the commercially important most of the commercially grade of phosphate rocks, and the P2Y contain 32% high weight. So the commercially production of the phosphate rocks being the 19 and different different parameters should be used for the collecting and the many of the countries use as Morocco and the Russia and the Tanzania. So the Turkish, Jordan and the Algeria. These are the major source of the production of the fertilizer countries. So next is the SSP. It's the first manufacturing fertilizer in the India and also in the world level. So what is the role and how to manufacture? So first is the characters of these fertilizer. First is the normal superphosphate, and the only is the superphosphate. So the first fertilizer produced in the rock phosphate by the and the adding sulfuric acid. So the content is the 60% of the P2O5 and 80% of the calcium and 25% sulfur. And content of TSP, first is DSP, TSP and SP. So the content of 46% and 42%, 30% of the calcium sulfur. So is the character of the SSP. So what is the manufacturing process of the SSP? The second question. So the fertilizer is also known as the normal as a superphosphate, and the already the superphosphate is the first fertilizer we produce in the industrial level, and the production should be started in the 1843 in the England first. Second is the USA, and third manufacturing like in India. So the first is the contribution in the world phosphate supply, the shrinking and the present in the amongst the phosphate fertilizer is not more than the 20% India. Yet the SSP is the important phosphate fertilizer. It will likely the remain so the because the following advantage. So the production is the process. SSP is the simple require the technology process. The SSP is the supply two secondary nutrients like calcium and sulfur. Also is the phosphorus, charged phosphorus. So the fertilizer effectiveness is unquestionable. So the economic scale of the minor and the small plants are visible. So the process of not capital intensive SSP or the operates one of the transitional schedule. So through the advantage of the basis, the analysis through the 20% of the consequent the high application cost of the. So the compare this the fertilizer or the sugar phosphates. Next one is the production of SSP involve following operations. That means the process like of powder and the phosphate rocks, so containing the 30% of the total phosphate. So the mix with the sulfuric acid 65% or the 75% NaS2SO4 and the slurry solidification. So the after the slurry and then the banning when the continuous the reaction and the crystallization. So the monocalcium phosphate take place at the time of the requirement. Next is the weight material. Weight material is subjected to curing when the sum of the slow reaction is the state of the near completion and the excess of the water evaporation. So the curing of the 2 to 6 weeks, the dried material cured with the powder formed with SSP. Granular SSP is the dried as the granulated after the cured forms. This is the process of the using the general aggregate the reaction with the stage of the sulfuric acid and the part of epitide phosphoric acid and the resultant of the phosphoric acid subsequent to react with the remaining epitide forming a monocalcium phosphate. So first stage is the rapid and second is the process of slowly, and then may be also seen as the SSP mixture and the calcium phosphate. So usually gypsum is the water monocalcium phosphate and the former compound. So the reason is the manufactured to 16 to 20% of the these compounds. So enriched superphosphate, that means the high content of the phosphate or availability of in these fertilizers. So the also known as the double superphosphate is mixture of the SSP and TSP. So the produce the react with the rock phosphate and mix with the acid system to containing variable production. So sulfuric acid and phosphoric acid, the advantage of these materials are fairly high to phosphorus content and the presence of the some amount of sulfate and calcium fertilizer derived from the phosphoric acid. So the theoretically and the phosphate can be made by the phosphoric acid and commercially produced by the triple superphosphate and phosphoric acid. So the TSP is the produced by the reacting with the phosphoric acid and with the phosphoric phosphate rock and the phosphoric acid. So the react with the phosphate and phosphoric acid. So the formation of calcium phosphate to phosphate and the harvest. So the TSP considers phosphoric acid containing P and the form of the water soluble monocalcium phosphate. And another advantage is P contains interaction directly phosphate with the disadvantage of TSP character of the many fertilizers. So these are the other phosphatic fertilizers like basic slide. Basic slide is also called as a Thomas slide, is the another name. So byproduct of is the steel industry, and usually a range of this fertilizer content is the 10 to 20% of the phosphorus. But the basic slide is the product used in India rather than poor in the phosphate content, like 2 to 5% is the richest, not the rich content of the phosphate. So the phosphate is the basic slide present in the mainly calcium silicophosphates. It is not soluble in the water. Calcium silicophosphates. And but is the small fraction of soluble 2% of citric acid is the considerable potentially plant available. Second is the bone meal. So good source of the P in acid for acid soil. So the solubility, slow solubility and the long term effect, but the expensive use of the fertilizer, most of the bone meal is the for the feeds. Next is the basic slides. Basic slides are the control of the resources of the fertilizers, and these are the mineral of the show the image. And the basic slides Thomas slides is the byproduct of steel industry, and the 15 to 25% calcium and the phosphate, cotton 2% and the highly hygroscopic in the natures. Next is the bone meal, and this log slide in the bone meal and the raw material of estimated bone meal. So the raw material is the calcium phosphate and raw material for the production of SSP. So the 20%, these contain 20% of the phosphorus or phosphate in these materials like calcium phosphate. So the second estimate bone meal is 22% of the P2O5, the 60. The total P2O5 content increased by the passing estimate the influence. So these are the manufacturing of the process of the phosphatic fertilizer. So thank you.